Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. Mike and I are here with our weekly comic book news. Over the next 30 minutes or so, Mike and I are just going to take the four most important topics to us in the comic book landscape, talk about those a little bit. We'll also kind of slice these down as well and release them as individual parts as well. So if there's a segment that you really want to watch, we'll probably release it later in the day as well. But we'll kind of go through all four of those. And to start, Mike, we did a Friday, you and I talked. I was able to do the video talked about the best new comics of the week. One I thought would be on there, but sadly wasn't, was Fantastic Four #1. We actually got two Fantastic Fours, the main continuity one and then the MCU sort of spin-off one. Both of these were kind of boring issues, but with one major theme that sort of was prevalent throughout and done with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. And that is basically that Sue Storm is now the leader of the Fantastic Four. Literally in the book on the second page, they have kind of her narrating, and that's me, Susan Storm, the Invisible Woman. I bend light and energy and make force fields. I lead the team. They also kind of refer Ben Grimm as her best friend, which that has, I guess, been true, but typically that would be Reed Richards. So it seems Reed is being replaced as the leader and being replaced in some ways. Um, so here's the weird thing: Sue has absolutely led the team at times, right? But that's typically been Reed's lost in time or thought to be dead or something else
Right?
going on. If you pick up the MCU one, the reason it's happening in this is very clearly from the MCU one. You can tell in the movie Sue is going to be the leader of the team. What is weird to me on this, Mike, basically from the very first panel of Fantastic Four #1 with Kirby and Lee, Mr. Fantastic is the leader of the team. What do
Okay.
you think about them replacing him as the leader with Sue Storm? Do you think this is much to do about nothing, or how do you feel overall?
I don't like it because these characters were formulated by the masters themselves and have passed them down to us as an inheritance to carry forward.
Mhm.
And it like you said, it would make sense like in a story form, like a one-off or where Reed was incapacitated somehow, or not able to join forces with
Mhm.
his three fellow crime fighters. But I just think doubling down on a trend that Marvel's been going, plunging towards for the last several years is not a good move when we really need to get back to more basics to regather the fan base and put them back on track with you in your cinematic universe and in the comics, or the chicken versus the egg kind of thing where we're at right now. The comics are just, movie plot ideas that they try out every month now. I don't know.
Yeah. No, the weirdest thing with this, I decided to have some fun, and I used Google and I just typed in who is the leader of the Fantastic Four. And what's so funny is if you Google that now, it brings up the Invisible Woman as the leader of the Fantastic Four,
Wow.
which is kind of crazy. Um, if you get like the AI summation that Google now gives you at the top. What's
Yeah.
weird is, look, I don't know that there's a female character in comics that I like more than the Invisible Woman. I think she's probably one of the best and most well-rounded characters that exists, but her role is not as the leader of the Fantastic Four, but that doesn't mean she's not important or maybe even the most important character. And what ticks me off with this is, Marvel, ever since Endgame, they made a determination that they really wanted to push female characters. I've got no problem with that if it's done well. Gone out of their way to make contentious decisions with those and then blame everybody's pushback on it as you're being sexist. And it's like, no, you're not doing the comic books justice. When I looked at Captain Marvel, when they decided, hey, Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, we're just skipping him. It's just Carol Danvers. She's going to be it. And not only that, we're going to recast Marvel as an older woman who dies in a non dramatic fashion to
Yeah.
completely get rid of that character. When you look at Taskmaster, a great villain, and they go, nope, it's going to be a girl instead. And she's going to be not evil, but like programmed to be bad. You kind of need to deal with that, I guess. When they decided in this movie, hey, the Silver Surfer, not Norrin Rad, we're going to make it somebody else. It's going to be a girl. And then now you take the Fantastic Four and you're like, hey, Reed Richards, his main kind of thing, smartest guy and leader of the team. Not anymore. And you're playing into the complaints that people have. This is in addition to Ironheart, and you do female Thor and She-Hulk and everything else. And I think, yes, there is a corner of the internet and a corner of things that just hates things because you don't want to see girl superheroes or whatever. Sure. But Marvel just keeps doing this. And what I don't want to hear is when they talk about the Fantastic Four movie, and this is where I've lost so much of my excitement for it. You hear the people talk, oh, we love the comics. We love Kirby and Stan's work. You threw out Norrin Rad and you made Reed Richards not the leader of the team to make Sue the You don't tell me how much you love Stan and Jack's work and how much you love the Fantastic Four. No matter how much you plaster family all over it, which is a huge dynamic and should be there. When you decide, hey, yeah, we're updating this to change something that doesn't freaking need to be changed, it's going to cause backlash and it's going to cause fans to go, man, I don't like this. And I know people can put, hey, in Fantastic Four 162 or whatever, Sue led the team. Yeah, sure, absolutely, for a couple issues. But if you go, who's the leader of the Fantastic Four? It's kind of like the X-Men. The leader of the X-Men is either Professor X or Cyclops. If you make it somebody else, it's like, technically, yeah, you could be right for an issue or two that was true, but why would you use that when you're doing this major, huge cinematic push? It's just frustrating because it just seems like this movie, and based on what they're doing, you kind of can seem like what this is. Now it's infecting the comic books where you're even going to take that dynamic out. It's really, really frustrating.
Sue's
Um,
dynamic is so important because she's the glue that holds the family together.
yep.
And now she's the leader and the glue. And what are you going to do with what happened to Reed
Reed's just the
Richards?
smart guy in the corner who does. Well, and that's the other part. Part of why Reed's the leader. He's the smartest man on the planet. When the Fantastic Four encounter Galactus, the reason that he typically leads is he's the only guy who's able to be smart enough to figure out the solution and go, Ben, you need to hit this. Johnny, go light that on fire. Sue, protect a shield. And then I'll go create something.
Yeah.
Basically, at this point, when is it going to be that Sue's just as smart as Reed? And then she tells him to go build the thing or whatever. It just, it doesn't, it takes so much away from Reed not to make him the leader because all of a sudden he becomes just he's just the smart guy. He's like Forge in the X-Men now or something. And it's like that's part of who this guy is he's the leader. You know they're not going to take Sue being the heart of team away. And so it's just okay, Sue just becomes the most important character by far now. And it really stinks. She is such a great character from the comics. I just don't get it, man. It's so frustrating to watch Marvel keep blowing the Acme Dynamite kid up in their face on some of these things because it's just like, why? It's so unnecessary.
It's the Fantastic Three now, I guess.
Yeah, no, Reed's
Uh,
just there in the corner to, I don't know, make
he,
soup dinner
he
or
he
whatever.
becomes the guy in the chair.
Well, and that's the weird thing is the complaint I'm sure that they go is, well, hey, in some of those early issues, Sue doesn't have a lot to do. Well, how about you design plots then that let her have something to do? Instead, they're like, well, the solution is take something from Reed, and that's what she does. And that's just lazy, in my opinion. But let us know. What do you guys think? Do you think we're overreacting to this? Do you like this change? Again, if you disagree with us, that's completely okay. I just flat out can't stand it because one of the most early established things from almost, I believe, page one of Fantastic Four when he fires off the flare to get their
Yeah.
attention is he's the leader. And we've decided now, not so much. Yeah, frustrating. All right, we will pivot to our second topic. We have done a video on this a long time ago, Mike, but as it gets closer and closer to, I believe, 2035, when this will actually come to head, DC's doing some things to celebrate their 100th anniversary here in the next decade. So I think they've announced a plan to kind of every year do a sort of celebration of each decade. But the main thing we want to talk about Superman and Batman are creeping closer to becoming property of the public domain to where basically anything can be done with those characters. Mike, do you think this is an upcoming iceberg a la the Titanic for DC Comics? Do you think this will be good for comic book fans? Like, what do you think about these major properties getting closer and closer to public domain?
Well, if anybody, DC has been the bulldog on their IP from the very beginning, suing Fawcett for, creating Captain Marvel.
Hmm.
And so they have historically have had a very aggressive legal team. So I imagine this is maneuvering to make sure that they keep
As
control of their
good as they
intellectual
can.
property. So Superman came out in 1938 and Batman came out in 1939. So arguably we're a little further away, but DC's first comic, More Fun Comics, under Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson, came out in 35, and Detective Comics started, well, 27 issues, so
Hmm.
about 2 years
Batman
um,
maybe.
before Batman came out. So yeah, we are creeping towards that century mark. That's really good. But I think, yeah, this is a ploy to make sure that they keep a handle on their intellectual property. And incidentally, the first, what was it, the first night?
Batman First Night, yeah, those early
Yeah, that,
kind of stuff.
that got a second
Yeah, it's got a
thing, so
second one
that'll be
coming up.
good. Purple gloves and all.
Do you think this when this does happen? Do you think this is going to be good or bad for comic books in DC? Do you think like when Superman and Batman become public domain, do you think that will be a good thing? Do you think that's going to hurt DC? Like, if you had to project, what will that do to DC Comics as a company when these become public domain? What's your best guess?
I haven't seen good things happen so far with some iconic characters that have turned 100.
Hmm.
Winnie the Pooh,
Slasher flick, yeah.
Popeye, so I haven't seen good things happen. So you can imagine at DC, they're like, can we figure something out,
How can
boys?
we? Yeah, I think the sad thing for this is I public domain. I agree with. I think you should. I mean, we know a lot of fictional characters. Sherlock Holmes, I believe, is public domain. I think Conan is public domain, and there's a huge difference. You've got Titan Comics that like is the official license, can use everything, but I believe there was I don't remember the company that was public. There was something called the Cimmerian, and they were basically retelling Conan tales, and those were pretty good, but not great. I think the interest, like you mentioned, Winnie the Pooh and that stuff, that's the thing that scares me a little bit about public domain is we're gonna have the Superman slasher flick, we're gonna have the Batman slasher flick, and I mean, look, there's all kinds of evil Supermans and things like that at this point, but I don't know. I wish public domain would be people of good intent who get the public domain and go, you know what, man, I don't like the stories DC's telling, so I'm going to tell a classic Superman story that DC, and that would be great if we get that. I have a feeling those will get buried by the Winnie the Pooh blood and honey thing that we
Yeah,
got instead, and
exactly.
I think we're getting a Bambi slasher flick. I mean, sadly the stupid things I think will overpopulate the genuine folks who go, man, hey, I've got creative license to do this. And I will say, like you said, there hasn't been the greatest results on things becoming public domain as of yet, right? I
Mhm.
don't know anything where a character's public domain and you go like, oh wow, that worked really well. Sherlock Holmes, I think, has had a few books and stories that have worked okay. Um, Conan's comics were, but they're nowhere near what we're getting. I don't know that it's a huge iceberg for DC. I think officially controlling it, and I think the comic book collector market of being, hey, issue 1077 of Detective Comics matters to people who collect that. I don't know, if public domain will ever impact that. It will be interesting to see how far public domain goes. Can people theoretically make Batman action figures? Can they theoretically make Superman figures? Like, how much does that extend? What can they do? Can they create their own version? It'll be really interesting. It's going to be a game changer for sure. But let us know, what are you guys' thoughts down below. I would say I have flip flopped on this a lot, but I'm not looking forward to it because I do think we're going to get more stupid stuff than actual well meaning people doing it. But would be interested. What do you guys think down below about public domain upcoming for some of these huge DC characters, and Marvel not too far off after that as well, with characters like Captain America and Human Torch? We'll pivot to the third one topic for us. Mike, this is your favorite Marvel character, so I wanted to make sure we got this in. Uh, Recently, they had in the Immortal Thor, they had Loki sort of kill off Thor. They used this as a way to write him out of Marvel Comics history. And so, like, Beta Ray Bill is now in the Marvel canon, supposed to have been one of the founding Avengers instead of Thor. This is all to relaunch the comic as the Mortal Thor, where apparently Thor will be a mortal man. I know you're not big on hating stories before they come out, but Thor, I know what's funny, me and you have been friends a long time. I know you love Thor. Thor is one of you're a Flash guy, but the second character you like in comics is Thor. So for you not to even be reading Thor comics lets me know how well and bad they've done that for you. When you hear more stories like this, how does that hit you as an old school fan of the character? Like, what do you think about what they're doing with them? Like, what do you think they could do for Thor? Because this seems like another bad idea.
I hate it. I hate it. Thor is a god, and you can't make him mortal, and you can't kick him out. I mean, you just can't do it. Jack Kirby's like spinning somersaults in his grave.
Mhm.
You can't do that. I mean, Thor was very near and dear to Jack as well,
Yeah.
as a lot of his characters were. But, he's a character that Jack drew before he came back to Marvel in the 60s and recreated him into, the character we know and love. So, I just, you're shooting yourself in the foot again and again. Like, why you would do this, I have no idea. You take a perfectly great like I said, we have been handed down from generations from the master, this wonderful storyline and character to do with it what we will, and you ought to be ashamed of yourselves.
You know, the weird thing with this is, if I for a second believed they were going to stick with this, I might actually be interested in it. But this is going to be another pivot, useless stop of, 2 years of storytelling, and then we restore everything back to the status quo. And what's weird is Thor is probably the character from my childhood to my adulthood I have actually gained the most fandom of, and that I rarely, if ever, read Thor comic books as a kid. But during the pandemic, I kind of got in a let's read different characters sort of thing, and I started picking up the Marvel Epic collections. And gosh, I read through those so fast it's not even funny because there's such imaginative storytelling, such great art. You talk about character creators like the Simonsons, obviously everything Kirby did on the character. Those great, journey into mystery stories and the tales of Asgard in the back and this rich landscape and tapestry that they created. Even stuff like Dan Jurgens' underrated run in the '90s. I mean, there's so much great Thor storytelling out there, and like you, it's lost me as a reader. I wanted to like this new run, but they did this stupid, weird thing where there's a Roxxon owns the rights to make Thor as a comic book character in the Marvel universe, and they created their own corporate approved version. It's a comic that's trying to be clever, and I think it just comes across as stupid. And what I really am tired of with a lot of writers now is it seems like they'll dang near do anything not to just tell classic stories with these characters. We will do absolutely anything not to give you another comic of Thor stopping Loki's nefarious plan or going to some alien planet and fighting a dictator, or we will just do anything to not do that. We'll freaking rewrite the whole mythology to make sure we don't give you those type of stories. And I know people will say, well, you have decades and decades of those. There's a reason we have decades and decades of those. That's what people want, right?
Those are good stories. That's why.
Instead of looking at, oh, that's so tired, give us something new. No, we loved those because we loved spending time with those characters. It's the same as, and I've mentioned this book series all the time, and I would encourage comic book readers, if you want a great novel series to dive into, the Jack Reacher books are such fantastic stories. You know why? It's the same thing in every book, but the book is freaking entertaining. The
Mhm.
lone drifter walks into a town, encounters trouble, and over 300 to 400 pages dismantles it, and you
Mhm.
love it. Why? Not because it changes your world or it's fun to watch a character you love take on a challenge and see that character shine and take it down. And that's what we want out of comic books, and I'm so tired of them overthinking this stuff. And the big thing is, if I thought there was any commitment to this, if I thought for a second, wow, they're going to make him mortal, maybe they'll do something crazy like Thor ages and Thor gets married and we actually see Thor become more human, and that'd be great. You dang well know they're not going to do that. This is going to be retconned back in 2 years and it'll be right back, and we'll do, oh, that was that weird period where he was a more, it's just, I don't know. Maybe people who have been reading it can let us know down below what we are missing from that story. But I really wanted to give it a chance. I think I lasted about 13 issues and I was pushing it on that. It was just out of loyalty. It never got better. Doesn't seem like it has. But let us know your thoughts down below. Are you as frustrated as Mike is and I am with what they've been doing with Thor? All right, we'll close out. Fourth topic, highlight kind of topic on this, an actual positive one. The Absolute Universe is doing incredibly well on the sales charts, be it Batman, be it Superman, Wonder Woman, even Martian Manhunter and Absolute Flash and Absolute Green Lantern are typically charting in the top 10 when they come out. If you look at the top comic sales each month, all of them, I believe, are nestled in the top 50 or so for those. With, I think Absolute Batman is even outselling the regular Batman title. And these are no longer new. I mean, we're talking issue 9, issue 8, issue 5. So, I mean, we're seeing these have some staying power. We got some good news in that Scott Snyder came out and said he's got at least 32 issues of Absolute Batman planned. And that's just where he's at. Not that's the end point. It may carry on even past that. He's just saying, I at least have that many. So it seems like this is going to stick for a while. You and I were concerned when this launched that will this be another 12 issues? And then we look back and like, oh, that's that weird one. Hearing that this actually has plans, how optimistic does that make you about the Absolute Universe and what they're doing? Do you think this will have the staying power to keep going, Mike?
As long as the sales keep up, yeah. And if you're giving the fans what they want, I think this is a great testament to make a counterpoint against to compare and contrast what they're doing with Thor and some of the other characters. If you give the audience something that they want, they're gonna buy it. Wow, genius idea, right? And it's funny that that didn't come up in any of the Marvel editorial bullpen things. It did, but here we are. DC is like outselling, Marvel. It's in the
DC's
top 10.
really picked up a lot of ground.
That's incredible. It's like who would have thought of that? But this Absolute Universe is just good, and it just keeps giving. So I'm really happy about it. I'm excited to see where Absolute Flash goes, and um, you know, uh, gonna probably start picking up, whatever else they get. So I'm I'm
It's
happy about it.
it's really encouraging to hear they have long-term plans for it. And that one of the strengths of the Absolute Universe, you and I talked about when we were talking about Thor and talking about Fantastic Four, part of why we're ticked off with what they're doing with those is you're betraying, in a sense, some core concepts that we expect out of those characters. Where I love the Absolute Universe is Superman is such a fun absolute comic book to read right now because the main Superman is in a great place. And if I want the traditional Clark Kent, Action Comics is giving me that. Superman is giving me that. If I want the classic Bruce Wayne, I can go to Batman and Robin that's being written really well, or stuff like Batman Dark Patterns, and I can get my classic blue Bruce Wayne Batman. The Absolute Universe is this new, kind of crazy, different thing, but it doesn't tick us off or anything because we're getting a true alternative. You're not stepping on who Batman is when you change things in the Absolute Universe because you've pitched this is different. And right now, the reception to it is people love it. It seems fresh. It's doing really well. It's fun. And where I'm really impressed with DC so far with it is I'd say all of the comic books, instead of going for dark and morose and overly analytical and political, instead, most of them have just been no, let's have some fun. Let's do like 90s comics of just bombastic energy and action and huge fight scenes and things that you don't have to think too much about. It's just, hey, it's a comic book with some interesting things happening in it, some great fights. And if they're going to keep doing that, man, I love that. I love that this is the approach they're taking. And it's great to hear they have long term plans with it. Because the number one scary thing for me when they started this was Scott Snyder and Batman's a great idea. I love it. But if it's 12 issues, it's going to suck. Right? I'd much rather you get it. And so if he's going to stick for 3 years or so at least, I'd have to think if the sales keep up, it'll keep going. It's just really good news overall. This is going, and I think for you and me as DC Comics fans, this has probably been the most exciting year for DC. I'd say maybe since the launch of the New 52, which because even though the New 52 had a lot of controversy around it, I think as DC Comics fans, everybody kind of knew they needed to do something, and it gave it some hope. Well, the All In initiative, you and I sat here, I think almost a year ago when we saw that video, and we wanted it to work, but we highly doubted it. They so far have delivered. I mean, everything
Yeah,
they've done
I
has
remember
seemingly
that
worked.
interview, that interview with Snyder right before it launched.
Mhm.
And I watched
Him and
that
Williamson, yeah.
interview, and it was, he was excited about it, and it got me excited about it. But then, you always have the reservations that the DC that haunts in the back, like, a Raiders fan, like football season's about to
Like those with
start.
our football teams, yeah.
I'm all excited, and we had a good draft, and everything's so. There was that little bit of reservation, but yeah,
No,
it turned out
it's doing
to be
great.
good.
It's really exciting. You and I'll probably do a longer form video talking about the absolute universe and our hopes for it in a bit. But no, it's great news to hear they've got more planning with it, and I think it's exciting. And it mainly the biggest thing that I emphasize with loving the absolute universe, it's because the mainline stuff is still going. I think if you had told me Absolute Batman was the only Batman I was getting, I wouldn't be a fan. But when
Yeah.
I've got Detective Comics and 15 other Batman titles I can pivot to, it's quite exciting to read that one. Let us know, though, folks. What do you think down below? What's your thoughts on the Absolute Universe? Does it encourage you that it's staying long term, it seems? And if there's an absolute book that you're enjoying, let us know what you think down below. Wrap up our weekly comic book news. Thank you so much for watching, folks. Let us know your thoughts down below. God bless you. You have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.